Hello and welcome to the My Hope Story podcast from Hope Community Church Ballanark. Stories of hope, all about Jesus.
Who are we, but sinners saved by grace?
Hello, how you doing?
Alright, thanks.
Okay, how's your day been?
It's been alright. Wee bit of the old homeschooling,
That's
wee bit of
brilliant.
work. Went for a big walk with Dave Stevenson today.
Oh, that's cool. Where
That
did
was
you go?
West Maryston, round about there, and then went up, walked along round by Gerry Church, and then like up the road to Drumpelia and along and back. It was good.
Nice.
It was good. Good
Nice.
trek.
Good.
Thanks, Dave.
Happy days, yeah. Thanks, Dave. Okay, so hopefully you're going to tell us a little bit about you.
If you're lucky, yeah.
And then we can get into some hopefully real deep stories.
Yikes! I don't know if I was ready for this.
Well, it is a Tuesday night and it's getting a bit later, so yeah. So let's crack on. Why don't you start with what you were like as a child growing up? What was your childhood like?
Hey, wow. I feel like I should be lying back, reclining. Tell me about your childhood. So I was a kid once.
Yep, most of us were.
Yeah, I think that's fairly common, isn't it?
I would say so.
Let's hope the party gets better than this as we keep going. So yeah, I grew up in Glasgow, on the south side. I've got a mum and a dad, Jim and Nancy Bell. I have two sisters and a brother, and I was, they're considerably older than me. No offence intended to them in the slightest. So I was a bit of a surprise in the family.
Okay.
But that was fun. I grew up in the south side in Clarkston. It's quite nice. You might call it posh. Some people might call it posh.
And then you end up here.
And then we end up
You'll
over
come on
here.
to.
Yeah, we'll get there. I went to school.
Again, like most people.
Like, unless your name's Scott.
Moving on. Sorry,
I
Scott.
had that banner recently. Anyway, he's got a job.
Awesome.
Today. That's good.
Awesome.
So Pete's like pure shaking his head over here. Like, oh my goodness, it would be 10 times worse if he was sat here. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we'll leave him to
Aye.
pros at this before we get him on.
Where you go. Right, so I was a child,
Yep.
and I had I have fond memories of my childhood. I remember going to church as a kid. If we're talking in terms of Christian experience, I sometimes would rather have stayed home and watched Thunderbirds on a Sunday rather than going to church. I was chatting to my boys about that the other day because they were watching some Thunderbirds.
I can understand that, absolutely.
I remember going to school on a Monday morning and the boys talking about having watched Thunderbirds in the day before, and I was like, I was at church, missed out. And then occasionally, like if I was ill, I might get to watch Thunderbirds at home on a Sunday. So sometimes I wanted that, but on the whole I enjoy going to church.
So
What
going
else
to
do you want to know? These are
going to
random.
church when you were younger then, would you have considered yourself a Christian when you were really young?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go, there's your one word answer.
No, that's fine. Absolutely fine. Looking back
Like,
now, would you
yeah.
say you were
So,
a Christian when you were younger?
I grew up, obviously my folks were Christians, my siblings were Christians, and kind of grew up going along to like doing all the kind of churchy stuff, so going along to youth clubs and youth groups and
Yep.
midweek kids clubs and Sunday school, and enjoying it on the whole. Had good friends there, like loved it, and so kind of I guess was swept along in a lot of all that, but that was a good thing. Like I'm thankful for that. Like not many folk these days can look back and say that happened.
Yep.
Like from a young age, getting exposed to the Bible constantly, and I remember my folks would always encourage me to read the Bible at night time and that kind of jazz. I remember having wee daily reading notes and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, what would a typical Sunday look like then in the Bell household?
in the Bell household, it looked like, so we used to, for most of my life, I grew up in Cartsbridge Evangelical Church. So it's an old Brethren church, Evangelical. They would have at 10 o'clock had the communion service, which is a kind of open worship. So like a guy would tee off the service, and then folk from within the congregation would share a reading or a song that we would sing or stuff like that. And then we'd the climax of the service was taking communion together. Which was always awesome, actually. Loved that. And then there'd be like a half-hour break for tea and coffee, juice and biscuits.
The best part.
Loved that all the more.
Absolutely.
It was ace. And then like 11:30 till 12:30 or whatever was like the kind of family service, they called it, the main, like, I guess, gathering in some ways, like where they'd be preaching. Obviously as a kid, going out to Sunday school and all that kind of jazz as part of that service. And then it was normally back in the evening, 6:30 to 7:30 for another service as well, where they'd be preaching. And I remember sitting like in the service reading books or doodling or whatever, I've been exposed to that.
Pretty full on day then.
In between there was some lunch had.
Do you remember we used to have lunches at church?
I don't remember those days, and we didn't have to sit miles away from each other.
I miss those days. I really do.
Oh, man.
Okay, so that was a typical Sunday then for the Bell household.
Yeah.
What were you like as a teenager then? Did it remain that way? Did you fall away from it?
Yeah, so I do, like, as much as I say I thought myself a Christian, there's a couple of points in my life where I can look back and remember quite vividly that I needed to trust in Jesus myself, right? And I remember one time there was every summer, last week before school, Cartsbridge had and still has a big holiday club called King's Club. I remember being there, and it was like you're there during the day for 4 hours, and then the older ones could come back in the evening. And I remember at a young age coming back and sitting around, you'd be doing kind of Bible worksheets and all the rest of it, reading a little bit of the Bible. And I vividly remember the leader saying like that you need to, each individual has to trust in Jesus to be forgiven for sin and to go and be with him in heaven. Like, I remember that, the simplicity of that. And I remember in that moment, like, just quietly in my head praying, Lord, I trust you. I want to be with you in heaven. Like,
so before he said that to you, did you not really think it was as simple as that, or?
Do you know, it's hard to believe. It's hard to remember, like, really what was going on. Like, I must have been, I don't know, 8 or 9. I've got a terrible memory at the best of times, so don't ask me any more questions about dates and stuff. But like, yeah, I don't know. The penny hadn't dropped, I guess, before that moment. And then even after that, like, I remember being a little bit older, maybe like, I don't know, 10, 11 or something, and being at an SU camp. And again, kind of group setting, group chat, questions after the kind of teaching time or whatever. And I remember the leader saying, like, doesn't matter if all your family are Christians, what matters is you yourself walking with the Lord is important. And that kind of struck a bell as well, like, that, you know, I'd remembered, you know, I trusted Jesus, I wanted to follow Jesus, but I couldn't just rely on, you know, this is what we do as a family on a Sunday, for example. Like, so yeah, those kind of were triggers. What was your question? Did you ask a question?
Yeah, well, you kind of answered it. My question was, did you realise it was as simple as that?
Yeah,
trusting in Jesus, and you've answered it.
And a teenager, you were saying,
and that is the great thing about the gospel, is it is as simple as that. And just to your point, if you were to rely on your family and just going to church with your family, how many people would actually be saved? Probably none is the answer to that, but we'll come on to that probably a bit more later on. Okay, so you're a teenager now. What's happening then?
It was a breeze. I was an ideal teenager. It was great, thanks.
Okay, so what's the truth?
To be fair, I wasn't like a pure rebel. Like, I wasn't like doing anything crazy, so anything that I say that's, you know, out there is probably made up. So I
well, we brought you onto the podcast to have something good to tell us. If that means making it up, then batter in.
I used to steal Sega Mega Drives from toy shops and sell them on for profit to fund a drug habit when I was 12.
And we'll just finish there. Thank you. Okay.
None of that is true. Yeah, like I guess I was, again, kind of, even still, I knew that, still, mum and dad still encouraging me to be reading the Bible, still involved in all the kind of church stuff, but I guess it was easy to get swept along in a lot of that. And like, particularly when you've grown up in the church, you know how to play the Christian game in some ways. Like, you know the answers to give, you know how to fob people off when they ask how you're doing. You know how to cover over stuff. And I guess like I never really knew what it meant to, like we would talk about discipleship, accountability, that kind of stuff. Never knew any of that or what that meant. So I guess I played a lot of rugby when I was a teenager. Like, I kind of got swept along with that. Some of that meant I was playing rugby on some Sundays, and that was probably a bigger priority for me in some ways. I totally wanted to just be a rugby player, and that was about it. But I wasn't as disciplined as I should have been to do it, and then I got injured, so that put paid to that. But like with that came along just that kind of, I guess, rugby club mentality in some ways. That
So what age are you here then when you started playing rugby?
I'm talking like I'd been playing rugby since I was 9 until 16, I think, largely. But even just like the chat, wanting to impress friends. Like when I was kind of, I don't know, 14, 15, 16. Did you have non-Christian friends? Yeah. And how was that? Try to juggle that side of things? Like I remember like they knew that I was a Christian. They knew that like my mum and dad weren't overly keen on me playing Sundays, and there was sometimes like I would go to like part of a service on a Sunday and then have to go and play rugby or something, and my mum and dad made a concession with that, and that was cool. But I guess there was times that I just didn't really take seriously my witness. Like I remember one time one of my coaches telling me off after a game. I was captain at the time, and used some unsavoury language quite loudly, and he was like, "You're meant to be the good Christian boy."
That must have
and I was
cut
like,
you deep.
Ouch. So stuff like that, like, I mean, and again, it's nothing like crazy major, but I was easy to almost be living a double life in that sense, like want to try and be the big man, impress, be a rugby guy.
And it's hard enough being a teenager
the best
without having to juggle being a Christian as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So what was school like then? Because that's obviously your rugby side of things. Were you teased for being probably a Bible thumper in school, as you'd maybe been called?
A little bit of that, I suppose. But like, I guess like as I got older, like to start with, there was always like a kind of SU group, a Christian Union type thing, a bunch of, and like some of those folks I went to church with in that. And I'm sure early on in high school I was kind of like Patchett. Again, because I was wanting to, go and hang out with my friends who were at like chess club and that. That is true, by the way. So there's all these complex sides here.
I think it's more than a double life you're trying to live here.
You're probably right, to be fair. You're probably right. Try to fit in, like, absolutely. But like so by the time I got to kind of 5th, 6th year at high school, I was going along, but more than going along, was heavily involved in leading it. So I guess like there was a bit of a I always felt that tension between wanting to just hang out with my mates and wanting to do what was right. And that's the battle with sin all over, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I guess I didn't label it as such. I didn't understand it as such at that time, but yeah, actually in 5th year at high school we ran a focus week, a Christian focus week across the whole school, and we had these cool. I don't know where they came from, but I remember these American footballers coming bending, they were massive pure tanks, right? And they bent this massive at a bar and then told people about Jesus. I was like, that's weird, but it was
It's American.
totally American.
It's American.
Totally.
And do you know what? It's funny you say that because you're now heavily involved in Americans, which
Heavily involved in Americans.
which will come on to.
It's hilarious.
But yeah, clearly God
Cleveland
had
hat and everything.
a plan.
There you go.
Absolutely. Okay, so you're in maybe 5th, 6th year. You're
Yeah.
doing focus groups. You're kind of leading Bible studies, if you like.
Yeah.
Are you saved at this point?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do think, like, as much as I was meandering as a teenager, I knew it was true. I had conviction, and I just rejected that in some ways. Like, I totally think I put my trust in Christ at a young age and was a believer.
Yep.
So I never doubted the gospel, never wanted to actually turn away from it, just wanted to kind of indulge along the way, I guess. It did take me a while to get baptised, though. Like,
Okay.
As was kind of done quite often. Like, I guess, like we, even today as our church, we would take our time baptising young people.
Yep.
Like, we want to see fruit, we'd want to see growth, I guess. And like, you know, so certainly our church tended to be when you started to reach later teens, folk get baptised. So I think I was baptised when I was 18, or just before I was 18, I think. Yeah, and that was pretty sweet. Me and my brother get baptised on the same day. So
That's cool.
class.
That's
Nice.
really cool. It's a bond you'll carry forever.
That's it.
That's
it.
awesome. Okay, so your plans for the future then at this point. So you're obviously running the groups.
Yeah.
What are you thinking your life's going to look like in 10 years' time?
Oh, I still don't know what my life's going to look like in 10 years' time. What are you asking here? So by this point, rugby career was out the window because I was fat primarily, but I blamed it on my knee injury.
We'll blame it on your knee injury.
It's
that's
the
fine.
knee. It's the knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was always kind of torn. Like, I loved music, loved sport, loved messing about with computers. Like, so thought that I would, you know, get involved there somehow because there might be more of a career. So I ended up like out of school. Like, I think everyone from our school just get kind of farmed into the uni system. Like, tick a box, send the form off, go along, that'll be you, pal. So I signed up to do digital multimedia and communication systems.
That sounds all very intelligent.
Yeah, it was way too intelligent for me. Like, I mean,
Well, you managed to help set this up, so you must have.
that's right.
Some of it was worthwhile.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. None of this I learnt from uni. So yeah, I ended up at uni. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in my life, to be honest, and just was like, we'll give it a bash. Went
Probably
to
like
uni.
most people that go to uni, if I'm honest.
Yeah, totally. And like, but yeah, it quickly became evident that I didn't want to be there, basically, and I was wasting my time and everyone else's time and money. So I did 2 years, but at the end of the second year I dropped out. All that time I'd been kind of, I guess, still heavily involved in church stuff.
Yep.
Like, was involved leading at the youth groups now. Like, it kind of came naturally in a sense. Like, was doing some teaching, like all that kind of jazz, and kind of it just made sense. I felt at home there in a lot of ways.
So when you were giving up uni or thinking about giving up uni, what's the process there? Are you looking to the Lord for support on that, or are you just done with it?
Truth be told, like, I was pretty scunnered and pretty down, pretty angry at God, and I'm talking now probably like, I didn't. In some ways, I like to say that I dropped out. In some ways, it was enforced.
Okay. So the truth comes out now.
That kind of happens when you don't pass classes and stuff. Like, I could have. Whoops, smacking mics and stuff. I could have gone on and like resat and all that jazz and gone for it. And
So I was going to stop you. Does mum and dad know the real story here, or is this the first time?
This isn't like brand new information. Like, it's really not. Like, so there was a whirlwind there. I also met Cara around that time, so we'll blame her as the real distraction, basically.
Absolutely. And she still is to this day.
That's absolutely right. That's it. No. we met. Well, in fact, just before I started my second year at uni, we met, and she was a massive blessing from the Lord to me to deal with that whole shenanigans, really. Because so I dropped out, and then was just a bum for months. Like,
Okay.
I think so. I must have dropped out in like the May of, what would that be, 2006 or something. Look at me trying to figure out dates.
I'm impressed.
And then I basically like lay in bed and played Champ Manager for a long time.
The dream.
Yeah, really not. It sounded good, it sounds attractive, but do you know what? When you've been doing it for ages, like, it's not fun. And like, I totally became depressed, like hopeless, didn't have a clue what I was doing with my life, with myself. I was like, what is my purpose?
And you're angry at God at this point still?
Yeah, well, I think there was some anger at the Lord. Yeah, I think so. Like, I think I was frustrated, bitter, probably. I don't think I was very good at expressing all this back then.
Okay.
Like, and I think that's probably true of me in a lot of ways, that like I haven't been like the most expressive of emotions through my life, and so that's been a kind of I can see the Lord's hand in that, I guess, over the years. But so I would have probably just bottled up a lot of that. Like, not too many people really knew what was going on.
Okay.
Like, I was able to kind of keep doing the other stuff involved in church life and all the rest of it.
So you're still doing all that while feeling...
Yeah, still doing that. But like, just breaking down in tears. Just like, lost, basically, in a sense. Like, and that's where Cara was a huge blessing, because she was, I guess, the first person that I felt able to properly open up to and start talking to about some of this stuff. Like, and that was gold. And I guess she helped me process a lot of it, helped me start thinking through what I was going to do next. And she was a real gift, and still is.
And for those of you that don't know Pete and Cara is Pete's wife.
She did become my wife,
which I'm sure we'll find out more about. I just want to go back to, you had mentioned earlier on that you were really into your music, because I know that played a big part in your life, and probably still does to this day. Tell us a little bit about your history of music then. Okay.
My history of music.
Yes.
This could be a long segment of the podcast. Not a very interesting one, to be fair. It's mostly just me in my room playing guitar. I learned guitar in high school. My brother-in-law gave me my first guitar. Eternally thankful for that. And then was learning at school, doing music, doing all that. Was taught guitar by someone who had a #1 single.
That's cool.
Do you know, you'll never remember it. It was on like Levi's adverts and stuff back in the day. Band called Stiltskin, song Inside. It went do 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 do.
Nope.
No.
I feel like we should get a guitar though, and you should.
We should at least have can we edit in that music, or can we play it somehow? I don't have my phone because it's being a camera right now, or else I would just play it for you.
I'm sure Pete can edit that.
That's right. He's a snippet.
That's pretty cool though.
Well, it was pretty cool. Although he wasn't, he was quite a grumpy. No, I don't mean to. No, he wasn't a grumpy. He wasn't like overly keen on that whole rock star thing anymore by the time I got to him. Like,
okay.
He was playing classical guitar and stuff, which was cool in itself. But he wasn't he was always quite bashful about the rock star stuff.
And you wanted to come in and be a rock star?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much. I wanted to be Jimi Hendrix or John Frusciante or Slash, preferably a combination of all three.
That's cool. So I remember one time in Greyfriars, you had it was your band, Cara was also in it, and you put a show on for the community.
Illuminati.
That was cool.
Or Illuminate, as we formerly were called.
How did that happen? Was this a band that you created?
It was... Basically, we met a couple of guys at an SU camp. Scripture Union has played that kind of... has been a thread through a lot of my life. Johnny Barber and Chris Barber, brothers from Edinburgh. We met them and instantly just musically hit it off, I guess. Loved jamming. We were playing like Incubus and stuff together. It was great fun. But then we both loved music and wanted to do something Christian with it. Like, so I wanted to do kind of worship events, if you call it that. So yeah, we started, like, Cara and I used to, before we were even driving, used to get the bus through to Edinburgh on Tuesday evenings for a practice.
Band practice.
At Gorgie. It was great fun. Total riot. I'd be there, guitar in one hand, my amp in the other.
Amazing.
Walking. Great fun. Good days.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so we put on events. We did stuff at Gorgie, in their church for a while, and then we did other little things, like we came to Greyfriars, did a thing there. But we also, like, what we loved doing was, like, we did kind of club venues and stuff. Like, so played at, like, just a few places through in Edinburgh, like Liquid Rooms and Cabaret Voltaire.
So was this all
was fun.
Christian music or worship music?
Much,
yeah. Okay, and was it received well in clubs?
Yeah, like, it was cool. Like, we always wanted it to be something you could bring a friend along to, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But also something that's going to encourage believers. Like, so we always had a guy doing a talk, sharing the gospel, and yeah, I think for what it was, when it was good. I think I'd probably do things slightly differently now.
Okay. Well, hindsight's a great thing, isn't it?
For sure. Like, but no, I'm totally thankful for it. Like, invaluable part of our lives. Like, and it was great. Cara and I loved, and still do love, doing music together. Like, it's a precious thing for us. And so it was great. Like, I used to love that. Like, I miss just smashing my electric guitar like mental.
That's cool.
Really,
do you know? I remember having a conversation with Joe about Christians that are able to play guitar.
Joe.
I know. Well, we'll just have a minute of silence
Let's just have a moment for
Joe and Becca. And I remember asking him, is it a need? Do you need to be able to play guitar to be a Christian? And I think it's because every person that I meet that's a Christian can play something. And it seems to always be guitar, and I blame used to for that.
Blame us for that, for every Christian.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a massive statement, and then to give us the blame. Yeah,
of course it is. Although, a wee side note, we've got our very own Pete Stewart on Spotify now. If you've not already listened to that, folks, go and have a listen.
No.
Yeah,
Pete Stewart's gone on Spotify.
He's on Spotify. Some of his music from back in the day.
Have you put Table 57 on Spotify? Yes, that's
awesome.
Exciting.
I was listening to it earlier on.
That's awesome. I'm not
so have a go and
alone in
listen
this
to that,
world.
folks. Get his listens up.
Yeah.
Get him hundreds of money.
Get him on. He played cool places like Cavern Club and stuff like that.
You've
Well cool.
Yeah, he'll be on.
Me,
Okay.
I just played the local theatre playing pantos and stuff. Other than that, that was fun as well. To be fair,
That
I used
would
to
have been
love
fun.
that. Footloose. Played guitar for Footloose once. That was awesome fun.
That is
Great
pretty
fun.
cool.
Anyway, that's a whole other story.
Okay, so that's your music. I thought that was good just to pop in there because I know it was
segue.
a big one of yours. So back to you being depressed then.
Oh, great.
So yeah.
So I really like the blues.
Yeah. So you're fresh out of uni, having served 2 years. You've met Cara at this point.
Yeah.
However, you're depressed and you're playing Championship Manager. So what happens next? How do you get out of that?
I don't know how I get out of this now. Like, man,
Well, you're not. You're
where'd
stuck.
you go? Where do we go from here? Yeah. The Lord was good, and I guess just was at work through all of that to break me in a lot of ways, to break my pride. He's still breaking my pride to this day. Like, but it took a real humbling from it. I think exposed my sin, selfishness. I wanted my world to revolve around me a lot of the time, for me to be pleased and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I think it just was a time of like my eyes being opened really. Like I remember at that time there's two key and I know you were asking about favourite Bible verse and stuff, and we would come on to that. There was another two key verses that just came to life for me during that time. The first one was Ephesians 2.
I'm glad you came prepared with
Look at this, by the way. Look at this. It should be a pastor or something. because that's the qualification for being a pastor, apparently. Ephesians 2:8, for you're saved by grace through faith, and this is not from yourselves, is God's gift. And I just remember, like, I guess God's grace became all the sweeter and all the more real.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, I was starting to see even more the depth of my sin, and I'd always accepted I'd a sinner. I had no problem with that in a sense. Like, I knew that that was the core of the gospel.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a sinner that needs saved, but His grace just became all the sweeter when I was realising actually I'm far worse than I thought I was, and still to this day I realise that.
Yeah.
Like, but that made it sweet that, like, He was showing grace to me. He had saved me, and there was another bit. It's not from works, verse 9, so that no one can boast. And then verse 10, for we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared ahead of time for us to do. And there's just that element of my work is to follow the Lord and honour Him, I guess, and know Him. Like, I complicate it and I can overthink things or whatever, but like there's a simplicity to that. Like, trust Him with it, follow what He's called me to do, obey His commands, was a kind of light bulb moment in that sense. Another one was 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old's passed away, and see, the new has come. Like, and just that whole, like, God is in the business of making things new. Like, I felt like I was in the pit of just despair, of guilt, shame, you know, with uni and everything else that went along there. Like, and yet He was making things new. He had made me new. Like, I was a new. My identity in Christ was I had been made new, and He was going to keep renewing me. Like, so those things, I guess, shone as bright lights and started to bring some hope, I guess. Like, and I started to bring, I guess, some focus to my mind. Like, because again, I was all over the place mentally, I think. And yeah, God's word just pierced through that in that sense. And then, like, I had been trying to get jobs. I wasn't just wanting to sit in my backside in my bed and play Chat Manager the whole time. I had been trying to get some jobs. I'd been looking at like school classroom assistant type things and stuff, because I thought I would go back and do teaching. I was going to go and do maths teaching. In fact, I applied to go and become a maths teacher and was accepted. And that's where I was kind of heading. That was what I thought. Okay, I'll go and do that. I can do numbers, and I can probably teach people. So,
well, you can't do numbers as good as our Joe. We cheap fleet drop in there.
That's right. Joe and his spreadsheets, loving it. Although Pete loves his spreadsheets too. Spreadsheets, man. There you go. Geeks ahoy.
Yep.
What was I saying?
So you applied to be a maths teacher?
Oh yeah. So, like, I had been applying for jobs. Eventually ended up like joining a temp agency and working in a like data entry job, a couple of data entry jobs for like 6 months or something, which was fine. It gave me some discipline, had to get up out of the house, and actually brought again focus to my life, which was helpful. Around that time actually was when Pete and I started to.
That was my next point. When did you meet Pete? When does that come in?
We met in 2005, so by this point we'd known each other.
I love how you know that date straight away. Like, you've struggled with dates for the last half hour, and straight away you're like, met Pete in 2005.
That's right. And to bring a lot of themes together here, it was at an SU camp, and at the first time I met him, he smashed my guitar.
Okay, I'm really seeing a theme here. This should have just been called an SU camp chat. Like, okay, so 2005, you've met our wonderful Pete Stewart.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right,
why
okay.
not?
That's one word to use. You could use, I suppose. So we met 2005 at an SU camp where we were both leaders. Again, hit it off with music. And
was it the whole your name's Pete, my name's Pete, we just became best friends
we were
type
both
thing?
Fat and hairy. It worked.
There we go.
Played music together and stuff. So we played in a band. We played in the Power Praise band.
Power Praise.
Oh man, that was banter too. Good fun. That was good as well. Yeah, so we got to know each other, but it was before. So that was. Oh, now I'm getting confused. Around the time I was working city centre, we started going to Pizza Hut for buffet lunches.
Oh, the dream.
Shout out to Pizza Hut.
I can't even go to restaurants anymore, man.
Oh, come on, we can dream. We can remember.
Yeah. Okay, so Pizza Hut dates with Pete Stewart.
So that was probably one of the highlights of working in a in city centre for me. That was fun.
And is this when you're doing one of the data entry jobs?
Aye, that's right. Yeah. So
Okay.
that was that.
So you
And
stuck
then-
game out for a few months.
I did, and then I was about to start maths teaching
Yep.
back at Strathclyde Uni, but I'd obviously been involved in a lot of church stuff. I've been leading things, and a couple of folk had mentioned to me if you thought about going to Bible college, and I'd kind of been like, yeah, maybe, don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bit scary. Not sure if I can do that kind of thing.
Bible college, is that in Glasgow?
So there was a couple of options. Like there was the Glow Centre where a few folk from like Hartsbridge went to, and then there was ICC, International Christian College as well, where Cara actually went. So she was doing a youth work degree there. So yeah, that was kind of on the table. And then as time went on, it was literally like a couple of weeks before term was about to start, and I thought, you know what, it seems like this makes some sense.
Yep.
Like maybe the Lord's actually prodding me or dragging me in this direction. So I applied and they let me in, the Maniacs.
Amazing. So how long were you there for?
So I did a 3-year degree there, theology degree.
Okay.
So that was that.
And that comes in handy today.
Well, you would think so, wouldn't you?
Okay. So where are you and Cara at this point? Are you
So we get married in 2009.
okay? And you're still at the college at this point?
So we were married for a year of my degree.
Okay.
I think, yeah, that's right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about life with Cara at the start then?
Yeah, we got married. We lived right next door to Cartsbridge, number 1 Cartsbridge Road. It was great, a total blessing. A couple from the church bought the house and rented it to us, and that was sweet because we were like, where on earth are we going to live?
Yeah.
Who knows? And we ended up living there, and it was like, oh, that was a sweet gift, man. I don't know what else can I say.
That's okay.
We were getting used to.
What
being
age were
married.
you when you got married?
Oh mercy, 23.
23. Okay.
23. Yeah, 23. That'd be right.
You sure?
Yeah.
Just remember you're struggling with this, but you knew when you met Pete. Just putting that out there, Cara. Just.
Oh dear me.
Although I'm sure Cara and Lindsay already know that they come after your relationship with. Okay. So moving on. So you're married.
Yep.
You're just finished the theology
Yep.
degree.
Yep.
What's happening next then?
So, I guess again because of by this point years of experience doing kind of kids stuff, youth stuff, theology training, I was kind of made sense to go into some kind of youth ministry job.
Yep.
I've never been the most, I guess, ambitious of people. So I didn't really. Again, I was coming out thinking something like that might work. I don't really have a grand plan in mind. I'm not someone who's like, I'm sure that God's leading me in this direction 100%, let's do it. So I was kind of open-handedly I think some sort of youth pastor, youth worker in a church role was kind of where I was heading. Looked at and applied for a few jobs around the place, but wasn't happening. And then there was one afternoon Cara and I came through to visit Pete. I think he'd been having holiday club or something, and we just came over to visit. And I'd kind of known Pete had, obviously we're mates, I'd known Pete was going to be, their church was able to employ a second youth worker, so I kind of knew that was happening in the background, but didn't really put 2 and 2 together in terms of, I'm looking for a youth work role. Pete's church is about to employ a second youth worker.
And you wanted to be a maths teacher, and you can't even put that together.
Exactly.
Come on.
It's evident the Lord saved me from that
absolutely.
one as well, right? What were we saying? So we came over, and after chatting with Pete, seeing around a bit of Greyfriars and a bit of Berlanach, I remember Cara and I coming away and just kind of both being a little bit like, why have we not thought about this? Why have we not prayed about this? This almost makes too much sense. And I guess there was an element of it would be weird to work with a mate. I guess was the sort of thought. But yeah, went away, thought about it, prayed about it, applied, had a weird interview where Pete was interviewing me along with a few other folk from the church.
Okay. Then the rest is history.
And the rest is history, as they say. Here we are.
Did you know anything about Ballannock? Have you heard of Ballannock at this point?
Only, I guess, through Pete. Like, so it was on my radar. I'd never really been over here. Although, funnily enough, when we used to get the bus back and forward to Edinburgh, it used to come through at Baillieston.
Yeah.
And I used to always be like, I was saying this to someone the other day, I was like, this is a weird, like, why on earth is it coming off the motorway here?
Yeah, because it's the 900, comes off the motorway for like 2 stops and straight back on the motorway.
There's an advert for the buses as well. How about that?
If any bus companies want to sponsor the podcast.
That's hilarious. But like, it's funny, like, how the Lord works. I had no idea where we were coming off the motorway. I'm like, what is this place? Why are we here?
Yeah.
And it's just along the road. So I didn't really know East End at all. Like, grew up South Side. But yeah, had heard from Pete. Heard good things about the opportunities, and yeah, it just kind of made sense, and we were excited to go for it. It made sense that the Lord was leading us that way. So
that's
yeah,
cool.
It was good.
So your story isn't quite as exciting as Pete's, because Pete's got a pretty cool story about he ended up in Ballannock, which
That's right. He had like neons in the sky and stuff, I think.
So he can. That'll be exciting when he comes on to tell his story.
That's right. But that's the story of my life, though. Like, getting dragged backwards to wherever I should probably be.
Okay, so you get the job at Greyfriars
Yep.
in Ballannock to be the second youth worker.
Yep.
Obviously, I was around at that point,
Indeed.
so that's where I come into
Back
this,
in the
this
day.
story.
Yes.
As
yes. Do you remember the first time we met?
No,
Because I don't.
no, I don't. I really don't. I'm assuming I somehow came along to Rock Solid, potentially.
Must have been like, yeah.
I think I must
How
have
did
been.
you start coming along to Rock Solid?
I don't know.
We need to sit in different seats here.
Yeah.
I'll start asking questions.
I must have been, 15, maybe-ish at the time.
Surely not.
Maybe,
young?
yeah, I think so. I think 15,
Maybe when
16.
Pete started. I don't know. How old are you now?
27. I'm
So
sure I was.
I started 2010.
Yeah, that would have probably been when I was coming around, because I would have been 16 at that point
16,
then.
there you go. Wow,
Yeah, I'd
that's
have been
bold, isn't
16.
it? You and Jordan kicking about,
Me and Jordan, yes.
tearing it up.
Absolutely. So I had some really good memories of
Yeah.
GYP. So why don't you give us a brief overview then of, because
Okay.
GYP, there's probably a lot of stories you could tell.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of stories there. Like, yeah, it was.
Yeah. Maybe we should get Gary on the podcast. How funny would that be?
That's a whole other podcast. GYP, like, man, so many good memories. Like, it was awesome. A sweet part of life in so many ways. It was hard. It was a challenge. It was totally out of comfort zone. Like, I went from, several services on a Sunday at church where, I was encouraged, and a lot of people my age, and a lot of good happening.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of good happening at Greyfriars as well, but it was totally different scene, really. But it was sweet. Like, I guess with the two of us there, we were able to do loads of cool stuff, like messing about with videos and all that kind of fun stuff. Like
putting that IT computer stuff that you wanted to go to uni, put it into use.
I remember when, do you remember when we did a world records night?
Yes, I do.
Like, we were totally trying to set up streaming for that so that it could be online and stuff, but it just did not work. It just was.
I remember
we
that.
were ahead of the curve, like YouTube and all that. Like,
that was all a baby at that point, surely.
It was totally tiddlers.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted to do something that just couldn't be done yet. Anyway, that's as far as our pioneering goes.
Yeah.
So, what were we saying? GYP. Holiday clubs were a highlight. Loved that. I still remember I think it was the second year that I was there, and we did a holiday club and had 90 odd kids the first day. And I remember me and Pete and his stepdad Derek sitting in the office, frazzled because it had just been a riot. We weren't ready for that number of kids. Thankful because it was phenomenal. We had that number of kids, but just like, what on earth are we going to do? Like,
Was that the spy one?
Mission Rescue.
Mission
No,
Rescue.
I think that was the first one, wasn't it? It was it Space Academy? I think it was the sports one. Was it not the first Olympics one? Because 2011 would have been Mission Rescue. 2012 was the London Olympics.
Yeah.
So what was that one? On Your Marks. It was On Your Marks. That's right. Okay. Everyone in the yellow vests. Remember the yellow vests?
I wasn't at it. I don't think.
Oh,
I think
that
no.
one. Oh.
I think I was Mission Rescue.
Mission Rescue. There you go. That was good as well, to be fair. Not as good, but but stuff like that was just like a gem. Like, and like there was no. We were able to like lead Sundays now and then and stuff. I think once a month we did a kind of family service sort of thing. We were leading Bible studies, and that was great. Like, we were seeing folk really want to read the Bible and really want to know about Jesus and stuff. Like, obviously yourself at that time. There was young Scott, Linda, like, who are still with us, and countless others actually. Like, there was amazing opportunity, and the school stuff as well. Like, we were in and out of schools all the time. I loved football coaching actually. Coaching the team.
That's because you were a pro. I mean, you had been managing through Championship Manager.
That's right.
So you could take a team to the Champions League final at this point.
All those years of experience.
Absolutely.
That was brilliant. I remember there was a year Greg Cavana was helping me out, and like, man, we went about, like, we used to have these, like, it was almost, I think it was like monthly tournaments where on like a Tuesday afternoon, say, you'd go and play all the other schools. Yeah. And like, we went about, I don't know, it seemed like 12 tournaments without even scoring a goal. And I remember, like, the first goal that went in, me and Greg just being like, yes! So delighted. It was phenomenal, man. Good times. Anyway.
Okay, so you're at GYP then. What's your kind of, if you were to pick 3 highlights from your time at GYP, what do you think you would go with? Putting you on the spot here.
Okay. Holiday clubs.
Yep.
Weekends away. And
meeting me.
And meeting you. That was going to be my third one. People. Like, so there's a highlight kind of event stuff. It was great. But and those were also always special times, like particularly when we started getting like American teams over. Yeah. Again, we'll come to that, but like, when we started having, you know, way more believers about, like, because it was like a lot of the time it was just, you know, local lads and lasses that were helping us out who weren't necessarily Christians, but were totally willing to help us out, and that was great. But like,
and a lot of them had already been there from Dave Cuxton's days.
Totally, that's right. Yeah, they'd kind of grown up through the thing and were wanting to still be part of it, and that, and that's great. Big shout out to.
And they still are
Daz
part
and
of it
Gaz
to this
and
day.
Wilson and all that jazz.
Absolutely.
Man, poetry here tonight.
Yeah.
But like, when we started to have other teams come over, of solid Bible believing, gospel preaching Christians, like, it was sweet as.
Yeah.
Like, so when we were doing holiday clubs with those guys, it was sweet. Mission weeks as well were sweet. But the people, like, and that's what, like, I guess for probably all of us, like, made us like fall in love with Berlanach in that sense. Was like just getting to know people, loving the banter, loving the commitment of people to each other. Like, was sweet. And just getting to know folk, getting to know school, getting to know community, like all that jazz. Like, yeah. So
what's the challenges then of trying to get the gospel out there in Berlanach in those days?
I guess.
Is it a goal, first of all, to try and get it out to the wider community, or is it?
It certainly was for Pete and I. Like,
we
were pretty explicit, and any way we could, we were about wanting to see folk come and know Jesus, like, simply, and find salvation, find new life, find forgiveness. Discipleship was the hardest part, I think. Like, you'd see a lot of folk come along, you know, show some interest for a while, but then fizzle away. Like, for any number of reasons, like, that was the case. Part of that was the church around us not being necessarily on the same page. Like, I don't think that's, we love everyone at Greyfriars. Like, we had such sweet times, sweet memories, like so many people that we love there, but we weren't on the same page in terms of what it looked like to be a church. And
Yeah.
so discipleship was a key one. Like, it's hard to call someone to follow Jesus when not everyone around you is doing that.
Yeah.
I guess. Be the challenge. Yeah.
Okay. So you're at Greyfriars as part of GYP. How long are you there for?
So I was 5 years.
Okay.
It's 2015 we left.
So then Americans started coming over kind of towards the tail end, is that right?
So I think the first team we had was like 2013 maybe. Pete's nodding. Yes, I'm nailing this.
Yeah.
We met Mez at the end of 2012, just before 20 Schemes was kind of launched, start of 2013.
So how did you meet Mez? How did that come about?
Totally random, but brilliant. Like Murdo from down Mount Vernon, one of the minister down there, we were on chaplaincy with at Bannerman. So
Yeah.
Good relationship with him, and I think we'd just come back from a weekend away or something, and we were tidying up the office. It was a pure riot. You remember the days, eh?
Yes.
You know,
You only need to take a look in the office.
oh, so here, Faith's tidied in here, by the way, banging, like, it's awesome. But it was a pure riot, you know, all sorts of junk all over the place, and we're trying to sort it out. And we got a text from Murdo saying, "Got someone I want you to meet. Can I bring him over just now?" And we're like, "That random," but in comes Mez and Shaba coming with him.
Yeah.
And that was weird but sweet, I think, like, because at that point, like, Mez obviously was kind of introducing that they were going around Scotland at that point, kind of trying to see what was happening in Schemes, what was the church, the state of the church in the Schemes, and they were kind of working on the basis, and as they were travelling around, finding it to be true that either there was no gospel witness, or the folk that were there were bashing their head off a wall, finding it hard, and that was us. Like,
Yeah.
and we instantly hit it off, like, in terms of the gospel, but in terms of church polity, in terms of they were Baptists, they were on the same page there, like Reformed theology, like, straight away we were kind of like, this guy talks a lot of sense, this makes a lot of sense. So
And Mez is based in Edinburgh at this point still, yeah.
Yeah, so he'd been there a couple of years by that point, and was just about to launch 20 Schemes, again, seeing the need around Scotland. So that was cool. Big shout out to Murdo for that one. Well, but it took us a while, I guess. Like, I think we didn't really know what to make of all of that for a while, other than it's great to have people working in a similar context, understanding what we're facing, and wanting to support us. Like, that was sweet. Like, there was other Christians round about us, don't get me wrong, like, but there's a particular understanding they had of it all, which was sweet. So we started kind of doing a bit of a dance with 20 Schemes, and kind of got to know them a bit. Like, we'd have vision trips come and see around what we were doing. Mission teams came over that summer. The first team that came over, I still remember, Spangly Pants brought over these troops from Bardstown, Jerry and Debbie and Frankie and Marcy and all that. Like, it was sweet, it was awesome. Like,
so is that how the Americans got involved
the
then?
Americans.
Through, because you had met Mez and had a chat about that, so it was all through the kind of start of 20 Schemes. Yeah,
totally. Supporting churches, basically, that have started coming out, for sure.
Okay. So there was obviously a turning point where there was a need for a gospel preaching church in Ballannock. Yeah. How did you go through that transition?
Again, like I say, we were a bit slow in the uptake, I guess. Like, we'd kind of held out hope that the church, and the whole time I'd been there, and pretty much Pete's whole time had been without a minister, and we were kind of I guess, like, hoping that a minister would come along who would, drive the church, and we'd be able to do our stuff alongside him and work together, or maybe, this 20 Schemes thing, maybe we could, join up a part of that and be part of a team longer term or something. We didn't really know, to be honest. Like, and then, so I think it was early 2014, Mez and Andy Matheson came over, and I've told the story tons of times, but, like, Pete went to the toilet, and Mez asked me, like, we'd been chatting for ages, they'd come over to meet some of the guys and all the rest of it, and asked, like, what is it you want to see in Berlanach?
Yeah.
And straightforward answer was a healthy gospel church. Pete came back from the toilet, same question to him, healthy gospel church.
Yeah.
And Mez was just kind of like, you're it, boys. And at that point we were like, what? So that was probably the penny dropping moment, to be fair. Like when it just kind of made sense, maybe, okay, this is what the Lord's called us to do here.
Yeah.
This is what it's going to take. This is what we want to see in Berlanach. So and no one else is coming. We kind of thought maybe someone else will come and do it, but it's just like, there's no one going to the schemes. Like, there's no one doing it at that time still. We're looking for labourers, like, for other places. But yeah, so that was that. I think we were just like, man, us, that's bonkers. And I think people are still today like, how are they still pastors of a church?
Yeah.
But that's a whole other story.
Okay, so you're still with GYP. You've now got this whole opportunity here to get a gospel church in Berlanach.
Yeah.
So what's the steps there? Where do you start?
So first we left Greyfriars. Was step one. And that was, we did that with seriously heavy hearts. Like, seriously heavy hearts. I don't think we could express how hard a thing that was for us to do. Like, again, because we deeply loved and still love the people there. And did not want to cause harm or division in that sense at all. Like, we wanted to say, look, we want to do something different. We want to be a church that's different. We wanted to be clear in that, and we still believe the best thing for people in Berlanach and beyond is healthy gospel churches, right? We want people to come and know Jesus and live for Jesus. That's how we the answer to our deepest problem of sin. And so we still hold to that, but that was hard. But we started, like, before we left, we started kind of gathering a wee group of folk to pray Monday nights. We started off, actually, Pete and Lindsay and Cara and I reading Everyday Church. It's a sweet book. It's a wee book for you to read if you want. And listening to Alistair Begg's sermons in our house, like, years ago. And then from that, started gathering a wee team of folk who were interested on Monday nights to pray. Started building the team, started kind of working towards what kind of church we want to be, and talking about things like membership and like preaching and all that kind of jazz. Like, we did kind of 9 Mark stuff as well. And yeah, the team kind of grew, but the team also kind of imploded as we were about to launch. So we were kind of working towards, we were about to launch Easter Sunday 2017. We're getting there. And at the turn of the year, we were about to have a vision day, and we kind of knew, like, we had a group of people we loved, but there was differences, there was some mess, and it was kind of the way that we thought, well, you know, church is messy. Churches are never squeaky clean and perfect. This is what the Lord's given us, we'll roll with it. But I remember at the turn of the year, Pete and I praying, like, Lord, if this isn't of you, make that plain. Like, if there's anything in the way, make that plain. And within the space of a couple of weeks, like, it seems like we pretty much were back to the 7 of us that left Greyfriars, which was Pete, Lindsay, Cara and I, Scott, Steph and Linda. Like, so, like, for different reasons, like, folk who'd left on a theological grounds, who weren't entirely on board, loved the community thing, but not necessarily membership, things like that. There was breakdowns in relationships. There was some guys who were new believers who turned back to drugs and stuff. There was a guy who passed away, sadly. Just loads of stuff had happened. And that meant we were kind of back to square one, I guess. Okay.
So while all this is going on, he's been quite vocal in the community. What's the kind of response to that?
We got some pelters.
Yep.
Is that what you're aiming for here?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, even before we left, and then, like, in the early years, like, there was definitely suspicion. Like, are we a cult? Like, are we? What?
And that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. And now you've got the hoodie to prove it.
Yes. And this is part of the initiation. You take him on the podcast.
Right. Become a member, get a hoodie. We'll give you the pills later. No. we what am I saying? So there was like, we shared some videos online like about what our vision was for our church, got pelters for that, saying things like we had lines like about people being sinners.
Yep.
That just was not taken well, like people who just thought we've already got 2 churches in Berlanach, don't need a third one.
Yep.
Like a lot of not much of it to our face, to be fair, a lot of it kind of in the background, like and it's to be expected, I suppose. It is weird, like we said we were starting a new church and we were just hanging out in our front rooms most of the time. Like
it's a little bit guilty, isn't it?
Totally. That and the chanting,
which we're not allowed to do anymore.
That's right.
Hashtag COVID.
That's right. That's funny. Yeah,
Okay.
but like, so there was stuff like that happening, and like even the whole 20 Schemes logo and stuff, like it used to be Gospel Churches for Scotland's Poorest, and that had kicked back as well. Like, who you calling poor, and stuff like that. Like, obviously the deeper thing was spiritual poverty, like of it all, but that goes hand in hand with the stats, like of like the index of deprivation stuff. Like, yeah.
Okay. So you've tried to launch, or planning to launch. However, everything gets a bit messy, and things start kind of falling apart. Yeah. So you're reaching out to God at this point, asking, "What is going on? Is this what you really want for us?" How do you go back from that then? How do you move forward?
Yeah. I think, strangely, we all had a real peace about it, actually, which was sweet, and that is grace. Let me tell you, that is grace. Like, because if it hadn't been for the Lord at work giving us grace by the Spirit in us, like I don't think we would have been there. Like, I think we would have been like all over the place. Yeah,
but there must be a lot of pressure. Like, you've been given this opportunity from 20 Schemes
for sure
to set up a church, and you
feel a bit of that. People are paying us to do this, giving good money sacrificially for the kingdom, and it's just gone belly up. Like, what are we doing? You're questioning yourself, like you are thinking all these things. But I think there was definitely a deep peace about and again, that kind of goes back to the fact we had been praying, Lord, make this plain. Like, one of the key things we prayed all the way through, like pre-plant stage, if you want to call it that, was like, Lord, make straight these paths, like straight from kind of Proverbs 3, 5 and 6, like trust in the Lord with all your heart, acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will make your path straight. Like, we're praying that constantly, and we were just like, okay, this is what he's doing. And obviously, like, internally there's turmoil that goes along with that, and you kind of try and figure that out, but that was the kind of the anchor, I guess, through it all. And it was just a kind of regather, regroup, and actually the Lord in his goodness like started then sending other folk to join us. So around the time it was all kind of kicking off, like we heard from 2 other couples who were game for coming and being part of the church plant. So the Millers and the Clemens came, and then also Carrie was going to come and join us as well for launch. So it was sweet how the Lord provided all that.
Okay, so you launched. Where's your base? Where are you launching from?
So another sweet providence was the Calvary Centre, and Yvonne, in fact, she was a major providence from the Lord. Like, P and I had been working in Costa up at the fort quite a lot, which in a sense I loved. Good coffee,
absolutely. The
raspberry and white chocolate muffins, let me tell you, banging.
Although, would you allow yourself to have one of them now? You're looking a lot slimmer these days.
I am, but I'm also a lot chubbier than I was 2 months ago, to be fair. So yes, at the moment I would allow myself if I could. Although you can take away, can you?
I think so, yeah.
I might need to try that. Anyway, so like, it wasn't ideal. We wanted to be somewhere in Berlanach, so we thought, let's chance it. Let's go up to the Calvary Centre and we'll ask Yvonne. Like, we knew her a little bit. I'm going to ask her, and she pretty much was like, yeah, I'm up for that. Do you want to take my office?
Amazing.
So she gave us an office. We were based there all the way through up until a few months ago, really. And she was totally on board, like saw what we were doing. We ran, that's where the toddlers started. So Cara started, and Lindsay were there, and other mums kicking about to do the toddlers. That was great. And then We did holiday clubs there. We ran the cafe there for a while as well, which was a riot, but was great. And Yvonne saw we were doing good in the community. We were, like, she was all about kind of community development and stuff, and was like up for us being there. Like, so that was sweet, totally sweet.
So, are you and Cara living in Ballanach at this point?
So we moved into Ballanach. Oh, now you're getting timelines jumbled. We moved into Ballanach a few years ago.
So you'd been
2015, 16? 15, because the twins were like, the twins moved 3 times before they were one. Before they were one, or just after they were one, by the time they were one.
Okay.
Because we did stay, in 2013 we'd moved over to Brackney.
Brackney, that's right, yeah.
So we were there 3 years. 2 years? No, 2012 we moved there. We were there 3 years. All the kids were kind of babies there, and then we sold our house, moved into a flat, had to move out the flat after 6 months, and then we've been in the place we're at since.
Okay. So you're in Ballanach.
Yeah.
You're in Calvi Centre now.
Yeah.
And it's time to launch.
Yep.
So how's that going?
Yeah, it was good. We, it was sweet. Like, still remember that first Sunday. Like, there's a little video of it on the guys from Cleveland representing. They put together for us, and it's like basically us singing Amazing Grace together, and just loads of footage of the Sunday. Like, and that is sweet memories, man. Like, after years, we'd been at Harper as well during that time. So when we left Greyfriars, we joined Harper Church, and they were a good support to us where we were kind of planting. And then so the first Sunday in Ballanach, meeting, singing, praying, reading the word, preaching, it was sweet, man.
It must have been. It's been a long journey up until that point.
Yeah, it totally was.
And it
totally was.
Maybe at points looked as if it wasn't actually going to happen.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
that's cool. How many people did you have on that Sunday? Can you remember?
Pete?
About 50, but not that many locally.
Many members did we have? 15?
15 hours.
15 members we launched with.
Okay.
Obviously we've got like about 7 bazillion kids between us. So like someone's at the door. So there was a lot of kids, still do have a lot of kids kicking about here. But yeah, it was a busy first Sunday with a few visitors and stuff. We tried to not make it like a let's come and have tons of visitors come sort of thing, because we wanted it to be like people in Ballanach for Ballanach. We wanted people in Ballanach to come basically, and it wasn't a huge space. So and folk did come. It was great. It was sweet.
Awesome. So why don't you give us a kind of overview of what's happened since then? So it's been a couple of years since launch. What's been going on?
Okay. Well, people have come and gone. There's been a fairly high turnover, and we kind of knew that. Like, a large percentage of the folk we launched with were there for a period of time, a set period. So like Carrie was here for 2 years, went back to the States. The Clemens went back to the States. The Millers moved on. First to Kinninergy, Bingham, and then they're now in Mary Hill, which is sweet. It's awesome seeing that happen. Guys like John and Ricky were about, so they aren't at the moment. And then you had like other new members joining, which was great. Coils Wright started coming along, and then other folk. We had a ton of baptisms along the way, which has been sweet. Yourself included.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which was ace. Our first Sunday, Scott and Linda were baptised as well. Yeah,
that's right. I remember hearing that.
That was awesome.
That's pretty cool.
That was awesome. That was class. It's been a roller coaster, honestly. Like, and then, I was saying to someone today, for a third of our existence of a church, we've pretty much been in lockdown.
Yeah. Brutal.
I can't wait until we can just be together again and do it properly and shake hands and sing and eat lunch together and be church.
And I think for me, when I first started coming around, a big part of it was to have lunch together, just sit in fellowship and get to know each other and spend that time together. And I really miss that, and I feel for anyone new that's been around church, and that's why I wanted to do something like this as well, to help them know each people or each member for the church.
Yeah, totally. I know it's rubbish
tough,
that,
man.
because you get like a few minutes outside, and then if it's raining,
Yeah.
everyone's like, let's bolt.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
It's hard, man. It's just not the same. Like, totally feel for new folk. But yeah, the Lord's been good during this time, right? Like, the first Sunday we had here at Hope Hall, we had 3 baptisms and 3 other
Yeah.
folk join us as members. Like,
Amazing.
what?
Amazing.
Despite being in lockdown for 6 months, whatever it was, like, that was sweet. And then now again, there's some other folk on the horizon for baptism and membership. Like, so it's awesome that, like, I guess one of the big themes and a good overview would be our plans have not happened, but the Lord's been at work. Like,
Yeah.
in fact, Pete wrote a blog, I think. What was the proverb?
Many are the plans of
Many are the plans of man, but the Lord determines. Sorry?
purpose of the Lord will stand.
Yeah. What was it? Proverbs 19. He can find that.
Yeah.
But like, there's that whole idea of, like, we make hundreds of plans, but like, it's the Lord's will that'll happen, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen that and could testify to that, like, and still testify to that. I think personally, like, it's been a hard few years. Like, there's numerous challenges. Like, that first year of having twins was a blur. Like,
Yeah. And you still look tired.
I still look tired because we've still got twins and we've still got like, it was hard, like, because obviously this whole, like, we literally had the twins, 3 months later left our jobs at Greyfriars,
Yeah.
and then within a year had moved twice. And it was just a hard year. A car
It's
was
just
all over the
asking
place,
for
stuff like
punishment.
that. It was rough, man. It really was, like, and then, like, I've struggled health-wise a fair whack over the last few years. Like, I have kind of continual headaches and stuff. Generally, occasional hefty migraines. But then there's also been periods where I've just been laid low for like a week, 2 weeks more.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that, because you're absolutely right. There's many a time you've not been around because you've been ill. Where's your headspace at when that's going on?
It's hard, man. Like, so there's one period particularly, I think it was a couple of years ago in January. This is the healthiest January I've had in a long time. It's great. But like,
And we're in a pandemic.
I know. How about that? That's probably why. No, who knows? But like, I think I was off for about 6 weeks. Half of that was pretty much just in my bed. Like, so like, chronic fatigue was at play. I was falling asleep while people were talking to me. I remember,
Wow.
like, being at home. We had Ricky staying with us at that time as well. I remember talking to Ricky and literally falling asleep when he was talking to me. And it wasn't because he was dull. He's not dull. He was banter. Loved having him stay with us. But I just couldn't focus,
Yeah.
couldn't stay awake. I was falling asleep like that. It was after one of our anniversary services, and guys from Cleveland were here, and I remember getting up the day after it. I'd been in bed pretty much since the service finished until they came round to film. I'd been in bed. I remember getting up. I don't remember a thing about what the interview was, but they were filming us for some reason, weren't they, Pete?
Just for their memories back in.
And it was a haze, and then I went back to bed and was pretty much in bed for another day or two. Like,
Oh, wow.
Brutal, man. Like, and then Cara as well. So that was kind of going on. Like, it took me a while to get back to any kind of health. Like, I slowly kind of came back to work, I guess, after that. Like, doing bits at a time, building up.
And how are you feeling towards God at this point when you're ill? Is
Yeah.
that on your mind?
Again, I guess there's been ups and downs. Like,
Yeah.
there's times where it's just hard and your mind's a mess and you can't think clearly and don't know what to think clearly. But there's also like really sweet times in the middle of that, and this is where, like, coming on to kind of favourite Bible passage that you were asking
Yep.
about sort of stuff. I don't know if we can get there yet.
We
I
can,
go there?
yeah.
I go there?
We can absolutely go there.
Oh, brilliant. Because, like, there's times I want to get home, so let's get moving. I know it's been going for ages here.
It's-
Great. I'm having a great chat.
So am I.
Like, so there's sweet times in the Word that I guess were sustaining at those times. It was painful. Like, I probably cried more than I have ever. Like, particularly that period of like the 6 weeks, it was rough. Cried in front of people more than I ever have. Like, even when I came back, I remember, like, 9 times out of 10 when I'm leading a service and singing a song, I'd have tears in my eyes. Like, it was just hard. Like, we actually recorded, that was the year we recorded A Love That Will Not Let Me Go, Cara and I, when we'd just come back down the road from Inverness, and it was just before the anniversary service, for the anniversary service, and then it was flat, like, and that's a phenomenal hymn. That's another story in itself. Cara also, like, as well, should say she's had rheumatoid arthritis, so, like, pain in her joints. It's now, like, she's in a period where God mercifully has brought her to a place with meds of being pain-free for quite a while, so we're so thankful for that. But from about 3 months after the twins were born until a couple of years ago, she was getting just continual joint pains, random, like, unexplained. It was hard. So we kind of, like, the time that I was really, we were both battling big time. And it's just like, where do you can't go anywhere else but, Lord, how long? Like, what's going to happen here? Please deliver us. Please help me know you're with me here right now. Help me. Like, I got nothing else. I'm going to cry, and I'm going to cry at you because I got nothing else right now.
And you're trying to help pastor in your church as well. Like,
yeah, for sure. But yet, in God's grace, that has helped pastor a church. Yeah. Like, because again, there's more humbling that happens there. There's more pride that gets smashed there. More deeper, sweeter dependence on the Lord that happened there. Like, and so that brings me to, like, where I was going in terms of favourite Bible verse and stuff. And it's like Habakkuk. Well, there's a couple. Like, Ecclesiastes 7:13 was huge for me. Who can make straight what the Lord's made crooked? Yeah. Like, that whole idea of, okay, the Lord's sovereign. He's put that crook in the lot. He's made that painful. He's made that difficult. Like, you can't straighten it out. Yeah. Like, so trust him through it. Yeah. Like, okay. And then there's Habakkuk. Like, the whole book of Habakkuk is sweet. I love it. And there's this picture of Habakkuk crying out to the Lord for deliverance. The Lord saying it's going to get worse, Babylon's coming. Habakkuk saying, this totally confuses me, but I'm going to wait for you. The Lord pronouncing judgment's going to come and everyone's going to know that I'm the Lord. And then Habakkuk ends with this, Habakkuk 3:17-19. He says, though the fig tree does not bud and there's no fruit on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though the flocks disappear from the pen and there are no herds in the stalls. It's a picture of, like, utter material devastation. Yeah. So even if that's going to happen, he says, yet, verse 18, yet I will celebrate in the Lord. I will rejoice in the God of my salvation. The Lord, my Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like those of a deer and enables me to walk on mountain heights. And it's just that picture of, even though everything else is falling apart, I can have a sure-footed confidence and joy in the Lord. And, like, I just remember, like, when I remember studying it and reading it, and in times like when I was just at the pits in terms of health, like, that was where I clung. It was like, okay, Lord, you're my hope. One day this is going to end. Like, I can have a sure-footed confidence because this isn't going to end forever. I remember one time Callan asking, like, Daddy, why has God not healed your headaches yet? And I just remember replying, one day he will. It's tough. And, like, it was so hard. It was heartbreaking for me to see him wrestle with that, but it was sweet to say one day he will. Yeah. Like, and that's the hope we have in the gospel, right? Like, he's a God of our salvation. Like, yeah, what more do we need?
Amazing. So I suppose maybe just 2 more points to cover off, because I'm conscious that we've been here for,
I've no idea how long we've been going.
I don't know.
It's kind of like a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It's currently an hour and 20 minutes.
There you go.
Wow, there we go.
Bingo.
It feels like 5.
Aye.
So I think if you could give a message to non-Christians, I suppose, what's the message you want to give them?
Come and find everything in Jesus, because you're not going to find anything anywhere else. Because your biggest problem is your own sin, and Jesus is the answer to dealing with that, and he will satisfy.
Amen.
Eternally. And he will be your sure-footed confidence, when everything else will be ripped away.
Good one. Okay.
Good one.
And what's the plans for the future? What do you see happening for our church?
Like, it would be nice to be together again on Sundays.
Yep.
That'd be nice. I'd like that. Like, I guess like the vision is, in a sense, simple. Like, as a church in Berlanach, we want to be in Berlanach, so we're praying that the Lord give us somewhere in Berlanach to meet and be church. Beyond that, I want to see other churches planted, like here in Bailliston and beyond. Like, there's a massive need in Scotland, like, for the gospel. There's not many, like East End of Glasgow. We need more churches. Like, there's some good churches kicking about Glasgow, but not many in schemes or anywhere near the schemes or where people from schemes can go to. So we want to see churches planted in all these places. Like, so yeah, that's the dream.
And we'll be praying. We'll be praying for that.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's it from me. I think if we just finish in a quick prayer, and we'll let everyone go home, I think.
Go for it.
Okay, so let's pray. Lord, I just thank you for this opportunity to use technology to share Christian stories. Lord, I just ask that you speak to anyone that needs you right now. I hope that this reaches non-believers, Lord, and I just ask that you show them the joy that it would be to know you. I ask that this continues to happen. I just ask that you use this opportunity to bring people to you, Lord, because that's ultimately why we're doing this. If we can at least use this to bring one person to you, Lord, then it's been worthwhile. Every life matters, and just use it to your will, Lord. I pray for these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Cheers, Ants.
Thank you.
Later, trips.
Thank you for listening to the My Hope Story podcast. To find out how you can have your own hope story, go to www.myhopestory.co.uk.